Top of the morning to you, Ghana 4. It's that time of the day, that time of the show, where I share with you my blunt thoughts. And this morning I've titled it, Poverty, Peace, and Prestige, Ghana's Unprecedented Pratfall. Poverty, Peace, and Prestige, Ghana's Unprecedented Pratfall. I'll be talking about a number of issues, about 3 or 4 of them that are pertinent currently and will continue to be pertinent. But I'd like to start off by quoting Trinidadian journalist George Padmore, one of Nkrumah's closest advisors, who singled out how Kwame Nkrumah and the Convention People's Party offered a new form of political leadership that was centered on, quote, I want you to listen, Ghana 4, the plebeian masses, the urban workers, artisans, petty traders, market women, and fishermen, the clerks, the junior teachers, and the vast farming communities of the rural areas. That was what Nkrumah in the 50s and 60s focused on. And those are the very aspects of our economy that hold up this economy that we should be focusing on. But ask yourself, how is the petty trader faring today? The market woman, the fisherman, the clerk, the junior teacher, the nurse. We were told nurses are suffering, teachers are suffering, even media people are suffering. And then, what are we going through? Let's think as a people, even as we gear up towards 2024. And that is the trajectory I wanted to start because Nkrumah focused on the very essentials, the bare bones of our economy. But look at us today. It brings me to my first slide. Exodus of nurses, salary paid, too small. Now, quoting Dr. David Tenkran-Chum, General Secretary of the GRNMA, no nurse or midwife is bonded here in Ghana. You remember we had an interaction with the Director of Public Health at the Ghana Health Service, who was also making mention of the fact that these nurses were bonded. They are no longer bonded. So no nurse or midwife is bonded here in Ghana. Bonding of nurses ceased after the cancellation of allowances in 2015 and 2016. So the nurses and midwives in Ghana would want to stay and serve their country, but what is paid to them as a salary is nothing to write home about. You remember when I had that interaction with Umar Farouk? He earns about £3,500. Do you know how much that is in Ghanaian cedis? Almost 50,000, around 49,000 cedis. Now, why would that not be a draw for someone, patriotic though he may be, to leave the shores of Ghana? Now, we want them to stay because if they don't stay, who will treat me when I go to the hospital? Who will attend to me? So we want them to stay. While we may not be making that unfair comparison between the UK and Ghana, their market premiums, the car waivers they want, why can't we do that? Instead of the luxurious cars, the vehicles, the V8s, with all kinds of unnecessary accoutrements that we have, in other jurisdictions, they provide for the people before they think of themselves, politicians. In this country, it's the reverse. The politician will think about his V8 before he will think about the child learning on the bare floor in school. Our thinking. There's something fundamentally wrong with our thinking in this country. Now, on to the next slide. Here's what Dr. Arthur Kennedy, physician and political activist with the MPP, is saying. I found it interesting. He says, I get paid better, and he's in the US, than a United States senator, which means that society places a certain premium on my professional skills. The government should make sure that the living circumstances of health professionals match that of their colleagues in other professions, like politics. So the politician can earn so much. And whether it is ex gratia or what the Speaker of Parliament was talking about recently, whatever the benefits are, can we comparatively say, especially on the back of what our politicians have delivered to us in this country, the shambolic performance in this Fourth Republic, can we say they merit the sort of perks we give them? Can we? On to the next slide. Now let's leave the nursing and general situation and come to this recent bit about the alleged tape. According to excerpts, it's a secret audio alleging a plot to remove the police chief, Frustration arising due to the IGP's refusal to align with the ruling party. Oh, sir. So do the IGPs... I mean, if this turns out to be true, are they aligned? You must align to your appointing authority. It's particularly worrying because, you know, the Ghana Police Service is under the executive. And the vice president is head of that council. Now, breaking the 8th agenda impossible with the current police chief. I see. On the back of what we saw in Asen North. And then concerns were raised about democracy and potential election rigging. Look, I'll just give some advice to Mr. President. You may have the right to take away this IGP, but contemplate what the repercussions could be. You are the appointing authority, you are the appointor, and you can disappoint. You can take him out of there. But on the back of this situation, especially if this tape is deemed legitimate, I would approach it with caution if I were you. Respectfully, Mr. President. On to the next slide. Now, there was talk, though, just to cap off on the last slide. A member of parliament from the NDC end was saying, look, let investigations continue. If there's nothing in there, if it's all smoke and mirrors, why be concerned? You shouldn't be worried, right? Yeah, so just relax. Let the investigations go on. But let's come back to our soaring interest rate. I found this statistic interesting when I chanced upon it recently. We're talking about some improvements in the economy, but wait, what is the dollar CD ratio? What is the pound CD ratio? And even worse, what is the inflationary ratio? And then the increasing cost of borrowing. Look at it. Ghana has now overtaken Egypt, a band of 15 countries. Look at where we are. We're top, 24.39%. And if you're on a bank loan, you would understand exactly what I'm talking about. Some people now, I know people, even their loans, like what their salaries were paying initially. Now they have to top up their salaries in certain banks. If you want figures, if you want the data, come, I'll give them to you. 24.39%. Egypt with all its woes, 23.41. Look at Malawi. We're almost twice what Malawi is. We're almost twice, in fact, we are twice what Kenya is. Abasema. Why? All on the back of the wanton borrowing, which hasn't yielded any results. This is why we find ourselves where we are. Next slide. Let's go to the next slide, please. Now, if you look at Ghana's 2023 Peace Index ranking, let me just shift the conversation as we get ready to wrap. Everything seems to be going on a downward trajectory. Even the peace, we keep claiming, oh, Ghana is a peaceful country. Oh, yeah, we have peace here. Ehompono. Look at us. So in the world, 51st, in Africa, the 4th. Let's go to the next slide and see the dynamics in there because we are slipping. Look, in 2022, we placed 40th, a respectful, decent 40th, and we're second in Africa. Now, even Sierra Leone, Mada Bio's country, with everything that is going on there. But of course, mind you, this is perception. Just as we have the corruption perception index, this is also the global peace perception index. And of course, what we do here, the things that we don't stem the tide of, some of the things we've seen in some elections, and that's why I'm happy with the IGP for what he did in Asin North, though there were some skirmishes there. Now 51st and 4th. Now, what are some of the metrics? The level of societal safety and security, the extent of ongoing domestic and international conflict, and of course, the degree of militarization. All of that feeds into it. How are we faring? These are all national security matters. So you want to talk about our sports, boy. You want to talk about governance, bobo. You want to talk about the economy. What exactly are we getting right? What exactly? Now, let's wrap with the concluding slides that will give us a fair idea. The cost of violence in Ghana, if you look at how much we've been spending, in 2022, $10.1 billion. In 2021, $10.5 billion, with a deficit of $400 million. And that, of course, includes expenditure and economic effect related to containing, preventing, and dealing with the consequences of violence, which is why we ought to deal, for example, with the Boku situation. It's a scar on our conscience. It's a blot on the development of that part of our country. But just to wrap the conversation, Ghana 4, I want to segue into this. When you look at our multidimensional poverty, I'm very concerned about this part as I wrap up my blunt thoughts for the morning. Very concerned. Look, even the data we get from 2011 to 2018, it doesn't even factor in the losses we've made on the back of COVID-19 and the Russo-Ukrainian war. We keep claiming that these have shattered our economy. But per some World Bank research, we know that about 3 million more people slipped into multidimensional poverty within that period. That is not even factored in here. Now look at this. About 8 million of Ghanaians are multidimensionally poor. Do you know what that means? On various strata, poor. 30.8 million population, 8 million in this situation. Next slide. Now, if you look at the fact that an additional 6.5 million Ghanaians are vulnerable to multidimensional poverty, they are just on the precipice. A little push and they are in that pit as well. You add that 8 million to 6.5 million, what do you get? 14.5 million, almost half of our population in the quagmire. Let's go to the final slide. Now, the contributors to multidimensional poverty. Standard of living, basics. So you're talking about standard of living, 45.9%. Education, 30.5%. Without our education, we're doing well. But how about the basic? How about the other areas? How about those entities without the correct curricula, syllabi? What is happening there? Let's tout free SHS. But how about the other loopholes? How about what's the Nooks president has been calling for? The Get Fund, for example, and how over time we've been cutting down what we are taxed for. When I go and make certain purchases, I'm taxed for that. Yet we will not allot the money to them. We'll be using it for reckless things. Education, 30.5%, health, 23.6%. Put that together and you'll find out the tail of the script, why we are where we are. And Nkrumah focused on the plebeian masses, the hoi polloi, the ordinary people, that trader. Mr. Vice President or Dr. Vice President, I remember you. Nurses are suffering. Doctors are suffering. Media people are suffering. Are we not suffering now? It's high time you as leaders of this country rise up to the occasion. Because if you don't rise up, it will be your downfall. My name is Benjamin Akakpo. These are my blunt thoughts shared with you, raw, hot, unedited, undiluted. And please, those ministers, members of parliament, and other leaders in this administration who sometimes will meet me, oh, but you know, some of these things, I will say it as it is without fear or favor. We stand for the truth. We're independent, fearless, credible. These are my blunt thoughts shared with you this morning, and I hope it will get our policymakers thinking about the way forward for Ghana. Ghana, I salute you. Good morning.